Malik walked home slowly, as if every step on the empty street measured his patience. Rain had been falling for hours, carving thin rivers along the pavement where the dim street lights flickered with uncertain glow. This road was familiar to him. The same route after work, the same tiredness in his legs, the same rhythm of thoughts. Nothing usually broke that routine, but tonight was different. Beneath a lamp that trembled with faulty light stood a young woman. Her hair clung wet against her face, her fingers shook, and her eyes were fixed on the darkness behind her, as though something hidden in it refused to let her go. Malik froze. His first instinct was to keep walking. He knew what happened when strangers became burdens. Experience taught him that interference carried its own price. Logic whispered that if she was here at this hour, there must be a reason, and it was not his to solve. But then he saw her expression. It was not the look of someone wandering carelessly through the rain. It was the face of someone with nowhere left to go. In that moment, caution battled with something deeper, something that would not let him pass. He stepped closer, but stopped short, leaving a careful distance between them. He did not want to startle her or appear forceful. His voice came low, almost as if he spoke to both her and himself. This street after midnight does not offer kindness. If you are standing here alone, something heavier than the rain has kept you still. A few blocks ahead there is warmth and a door that locks. He spoke not as a rescuer, not as a man issuing orders, but as someone laying out a fact she could accept or leave behind. The woman lifted her gaze. Irritation flickered there, as though any gesture of care was an attack she had defended against too many times before. Her reply came sharp. "I do not need pity." The words carried exhaustion, a shield built from repetition. Malik did not argue. Inside, two impulses clashed, the urge to explain that he was not here to save her, and the understanding that any defense would only widen the gap. So he simply tilted his head toward the street that led to his home. No judgment, no insistence, just a gesture leaving the choice in her hands. Rain filled the silence. Malik walked on, refusing to look back. Doubt pressed at him. Maybe he should have said more. Maybe he should have offered assurance. But pressure could crush fragile trust before it even formed. Then behind him came sound. Footsteps. Hesitant, as though each step tested the ground. Then faster, as though fear pushed her forward. Malik felt the tension inside him shift into quiet acceptance. Sometimes lives intertwined before names were ever spoken. When they reached his house, he held the door without meeting her eyes, careful to protect that distance. Inside, there were no questions. He pointed to the mat for her shoes, set a towel and an old hoodie on the table, and placed a steaming cup of tea beside a folded note. The message was simple. If you need more, I am nearby. Rest. Then he left the room, offering her space as though silence itself was the most important gift he could give. She stood there for a long moment, staring at those plain objects. A towel, a hoodie, a cup of tea, a note. None of them had value in money, yet together they carried a weight she had not known, care without cost. To her it was strange, almost unsteady. She touched the cup with cautious fingers, and for the first time in days, allowed herself to breathe deeper. Inside that modest home, with rain still striking the windows, she realized that support does not always come in the form of rescue. Sometimes it comes as choice, left in your hands. Maybe all of us have lived through such moments, when a chance encounter shifted the course of life. If you have ever felt how a small act of kindness mattered more than grand gestures, support this story, leave a like and tell us in the comments which city you are watching from. Malik did not sleep. His house was small, the walls thin, and the door to his room never quite closed all the way. He lay in bed listening, not to the rain outside, but to the quiet movements from the living room. The faint creak of the sofa, the rustle of a blanket, the uneven rhythm of someone else's breathing. Every sound reminded him that a stranger was under his roof tonight, A woman he barely knew, someone who had stepped out of the rain and into the fragile circle of his life. Beside him, Jada slept curled under her rainbow blanket, her tiny hand resting against his shoulder the way it always did. That small habit anchored him, a reminder of why he kept moving forward, why he balanced long shifts with endless caution. Yet peace did not come. His mind returned again and again to the image of the woman, her drenched hair, her guarded eyes, her words spoken like armor. Trust did not bloom overnight, and still the weight of his choice pressed on him. He had invited her in, but was that wise when his daughter slept in the next room? When the first light broke through the curtains, Malik rose and went to the kitchen. His hands moved through familiar motions. Bread in the toaster, eggs in the pan, coffee stirred in a chipped mug. He did not expect her to stay. He half believed she would slip out during the night, leaving only the folded blanket as proof she had been there. But when he stepped into the living room, he saw her still curled on the sofa, the blanket wrapped tightly around her, the hoodie hood pulled low, her fingers poking from sleeves that hid more than they revealed. She slept, but not in peace, her body tense, as though even in rest she was ready to run. Malik placed a second cup of coffee on the table beside hers. No words, just acknowledgement. Only when Jada's sleepy footsteps padded into the room did the woman stir. She opened her eyes slowly, and the first thing she saw was the child. Jada stood in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed toy, curiosity shining in her eyes. "Are you a princess?" she asked with the unshaken honesty of a child. The woman blinked. "Excuse me?" Jada nodded with certainty. "You look like one. Daddy says only special people stay here." The woman's lips curved into a small, unsteady smile. It surprised her as much as it softened the moment. Malik, standing in the doorway with a towel in his hands, caught the shift. Tension loosened slightly. "Good morning," he said, offering her a plate of toast. She nodded in return, unsure but willing. They sat at the table together. The silence was tentative but not hostile. Jada filled it with stories about school and dolls and how her toy giraffe now knew the alphabet. The woman listened, smiling faintly as if she had forgotten she was capable of smiling at all. Halfway through breakfast, Jada knocked over her juice. Orange liquid spread quickly across the table. The woman flinched, bracing for raised voices or sharp reprimand. But Malik simply reached for a towel and cleaned the spill with calm efficiency. "Every morning," he said with a wry tone, "if it's not the juice, the toast burns. We are consistent." There was no anger, only routine. She watched him ruffle Jada's curls with absent affection and realized this home carried an order built not on fear, but on steadiness. Later, when she returned to the living room, the sofa had already been remade neatly, and in the bathroom hung a fresh towel folded with quiet care. Not luxury, attention. She stood still, listening to the sound of dishes in the kitchen, the laughter of a little girl. Those sounds felt like a language she had not spoken in years. Normalcy, fragile but real. For the first time in a long while, she found herself wanting to remain, if only for one more day. The woman stayed. When Malik saw her still on the sofa in the morning, he realized her quiet thought about one more day had not been an accident. She had chosen to remain. For her, it might have been a step toward calm. For him, it marked the beginning of new doubts. He studied the details. The blanket was neatly folded, the coffee cup cleared away, the pillow set back in place. She behaved as if she wanted to leave no trace, to avoid causing offense. Yet Malik's mind would not rest. What if it was just a mask? What if she was waiting for the right moment to take money, a phone, anything of value? What if her past carried more danger than her tired face revealed? He glanced at Jada, busy drawing at the table, and the unease grew stronger. His daughter trusted too easily, reached for people without hesitation. What would happen if she grew attached and the woman vanished the next day? Malik could not let his child collect wounds she did not deserve. He thought of speaking, of asking the direct questions. Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? But whenever their eyes met, he saw her shoulders tighten, as though she braced for interrogation. His words stopped before they reached his mouth. He understood that pressing too hard would destroy the fragile balance. Better to wait. Let her actions speak more clearly than her story. Later he faced the test he had been dreading. He had to leave for work. It meant leaving his home and his daughter, with a woman whose name he had only just learned. The weight of that decision pressed heavy in his chest. He pictured coming back to an empty room, or worse, a home disturbed by betrayal. Still, he chose to write a note and pin it to the fridge. I'm at work. Jada knows the rules. It was both a warning and an act of trust. If she intended harm, nothing could stop her. If she wanted to belong, trust was the only door he could open. When he returned that evening, the air in the house met him with a surprise. From the kitchen drifted the smell of soup. He paused in the doorway. The woman stood awkwardly at the counter, chopping vegetables with uneven cuts, while Jada chattered at her side. Malik said nothing, simply gathered the pieces into a bowl. The food itself did not matter. It was her choice to stand there, to take part, that carried weight. For the first time in a long while, the house felt warm, and his restless doubts loosened. They ate together at the table. Jada filled the space with stories. The woman listened, sometimes laughing, the sound rough, as if she was surprised to hear it from herself. Malik watched in silence, storing each small detail. When Jada proudly called her the helper, he noticed the woman flinch, lowering her eyes quickly. But behind that small reaction he saw something else. Relief. The word meant more to her than praise. It meant she was not a burden, but part of something. That night, as he tucked Jada into bed, Malik felt the weight of his fears return. He had not forgotten the risks. But when he heard the soft steps in the living room, when he saw the table cleared and the blanket folded neatly again, he understood something important. Trust is never built in one gesture. It comes in risks, in waiting, in the quiet signs that repeat until they begin to matter. His doubts remained, but for the first time he let himself believe the risk might be worth it. With each passing day, the fragile arrangement inside Malik's home began to resemble something steadier. The woman no longer seemed like a passerby caught in the rain. She moved with more intention, folding blankets, helping set the table, sitting quietly beside Jada as the girl built her towers of blocks. Yet beneath the surface, Malik's calm remained brittle. The questions he carried did not fade simply because she stayed. He noticed how she sidestepped any talk about herself. If Jada asked, "Do you have children?" her smile faltered and her answer slipped into vagueness. Whenever the past brushed against her, she recoiled behind silence. Malik recognized the weight of avoidance. People hide what they cannot face. Still, he resisted pressing her. A single demand for answers might undo the thin structure of trust slowly forming between them. Jada, meanwhile, drew closer with the fearlessness of a child. She shared toys, whispered secrets, and once, with complete conviction, declared, "She should live with us forever." The words hit Malik harder than he expected. He feared illusions more than loss. His daughter could not afford heartbreaks built on shaky ground, and yet he could not stop what was happening. Children believe what they feel, not what they are told. For Jada, the house had grown warmer, fuller. That truth could not be denied. One evening, after another long shift, Malik noticed the woman's worn bag resting near the door. It did not sit as though packed for escape, but as something set aside, waiting. Relief touched him briefly, then sharpened into tension. The longer she remained, the louder his question became. Who was she, really? He searched for answers in her behavior. She scrubbed dishes with meticulous care, as if afraid of leaving a stain. She spoke gently with Jada, never raising her voice, and sometimes when she thought no one watched, her gaze drifted far away, into some shadowed place she had not left behind. Malik knew those signs. People do not flee rain or weariness, they flee the weight of history. Late at night, with Jada asleep, Malik found her sitting alone on the sofa, hands clenched, posture defensive, as if bracing for rejection. Silence filled the space between them, heavy with what neither had said. He wanted to ask, "Why are you here?" But instead, his voice carried different words. "If you mean to stay, there are rules. In this house, no one lies, and no one harms my child." The firmness in his tone surprised even him. The woman lifted her eyes slowly. She did not argue. She only nodded, quietly, as though hearing rules was not punishment, but relief. For the first time, the boundaries were clear. Her expression carried the look of someone who had lived too long in chaos and welcomed even strict lines if they meant stability. When Malik returned to his room, he felt the weight of his decision. He still knew nothing of her past, not even enough to ease his doubts. Yet now she had a chance, a place not just to rest, but to prove she belonged. And whether she succeeded or failed in that space would shape more than her future. It would shape his daughter's and his own. The next morning seemed unchanged on the surface. The house was quiet, the routines familiar. Yet for Malik, silence carried a new weight. Now that the rules had been spoken aloud, he found himself listening to every sound she made, watching for proof that she understood what they meant. He noticed details he had overlooked before. The way she left the bathroom door slightly open, as though she had no right to full privacy. The way she erased every trace of her presence, tidying relentlessly, as if to prove she was temporary. Jada, on the other hand, acted as though permanence was already decided. She pulled the woman into her homework, laughed with her as though they had always shared jokes, even presented her with a drawing, 3 figures under a rainbow. Malik did not need to ask who they were. The picture spoke louder than words. For him, it was not innocent. It was a warning. What a child accepts in her heart quickly becomes expectation, and if that expectation crumbles, the hurt lingers for years. The woman still refused to speak about her past, but her silence grew louder with each passing day. Her eyes betrayed what her voice would not. When Jada described a school celebration, a flicker of longing crossed her face. When Malik mentioned a neighbor who used to help them, tension tightened her shoulders, as though other people's kindness was foreign or dangerous. Each small reaction became another piece of a puzzle he could not yet solve. One evening, Malik returned home to find a neatly folded bag on the kitchen table. His stomach clenched. Was she leaving? But beside it lay a note in Jada's careful handwriting. "I cleared a drawer for her so she has her own space." The decision had been made not by the adults, but by the child, who never doubted that the woman would remain. That quiet act spoke with more certainty than any conversation ever could. Malik sat by the window late into the night. Doubts battled with something new, a feeling he hesitated to call trust. She could leave tomorrow. She could vanish without a word, leaving only emptiness behind. But for now, in this moment, she was still here. And if life had braided their paths so strangely, then the real test had only just begun. When he finally walked into the living room, he found her sitting in the half-light, a small pendant turning between her fingers. Her face carried a look of struggle, as if she wanted to bury her past deeper, yet felt the pull to finally reveal it. When Malik stepped closer, she slipped the object back into her pocket too quickly. But he had already seen. Their eyes met. No hostility, only a warning. He understood then. Behind her silence lay a history that would one day break into their lives. And when it did, they would all have to decide whether they could hold together or fracture apart. That thought stole his sleep. Yet with the unease came something unexpected. A readiness to face whatever truth was waiting. Because sometimes the most unforeseen stories gather strength precisely where fear meets the possibility of hope. The days began to fall into rhythm. Work, school, meals, the quiet rituals of survival. Malik thought for a while that maybe, just maybe, life was finding balance again. When a neighbor mentioned that the laundromat down the block needed help, the woman agreed without hesitation. Too quickly, as if she feared the offer might vanish if she paused to consider. The work was simple, but relentless. The whir of machines never stopped. Hot steam clouded the air, and the scent of detergent clung to her skin long after she left. By the end of each shift, her back ached, and her fingers burned from soap, yet there was a calm pride in her eyes. Malik saw it each evening when she walked back through the door, tired but steady. For the first time, she carried herself like someone with a place, however small, in the world. Jada celebrated her new wages with childish ceremony, sorting coins into 2 jars she labeled with crayon, ice cream savings, and shoes for everyone. The word everyone sounded dangerously hopeful, as if she already counted the woman among them. Malik didn't correct her. He just watched, his unease pressed down beneath the fragile rhythm of their days. Then came the moment that shattered it. A torn strap, a bag of linen spilling open, and from the folds of towels rolled something that didn't belong, a chain, a pendant. Not cheap jewelry, but a sapphire-colored stone set in gold. Its gleam cut through the dull room like a signal flare. Too fine, too costly, too out of place in the hands of someone who claimed to have nothing. She snatched for it instantly, panic flashing across her face. But she was too late. Malik had already seen. Their eyes locked, his filled with questions he didn't speak, hers with fear she couldn't hide. He said nothing, but silence told them both the truth. She carried a past heavy enough to be dangerous. The door opened. A man stepped inside. Suit pressed, shoes polished, phone raised like a badge of authority. He didn't glance at the rows of machines or the people waiting for clothes. His gaze found her immediately. The phone clicked. One photograph, precise and deliberate. And then his words, quiet but heavy as a verdict. Found you. The air thickened. She froze, color draining from her skin, clutching the pendant as if it had betrayed her. Malik felt the shift at once. This was no customer. This was someone who knew her, someone who had been looking. And now he had. There was no time for questions. Malik moved, steady and sure, taking her arm, not rough, but firm enough to leave no doubt. They pushed through the back exit, leaving the laundromat buzzing behind them. The alley smelled of damp cardboard and gasoline. Their footsteps fell quick, almost running. At the corner, Malik called a neighbor, his voice clipped. "Take Jada." The woman didn't ask why. She only said, "On my way." The city narrowed around them, streets folding into a map Malik read by instinct. He guided her through alleys and side roads, past shuttered shops and blind corners. In a store window he caught their reflection, 2 figures pressed close in flight, and behind them a darker shadow, maybe nothing, maybe everything. He didn't look back to check. The truck started on the 3rd try, engine coughing like it too sensed the urgency. Wipers screeched across the windshield, smearing the drizzle. Blocks blurred past, houses thinning into quieter streets. In the passenger seat she sat rigid, fists clenched around the pendant like it could both condemn and protect her. Malik drove without speaking. Words were useless now. When they neared home, he slowed a block early. It was habit, survival instinct. Better to see danger before it saw them. They rounded the corner on foot, and there it was. A black sedan idling at the curb outside his house, windows tinted, body gleaming like a warning. Its headlights glowed faintly, patient, watchful. She stopped first. Recognition flickered in her eyes, a weary acceptance that told him everything. She tilted her head just enough. He understood. The past hadn't written a letter or sent a whisper. It had come in a car, waiting for them. Malik inhaled deeply, like a man bracing to dive beneath dark water. But instead of fear, he felt a hard edge of calm settle inside him. Whatever was coming, whatever storm stood at his door, it would not be met with silence this time. It would be met with choice. The black sedan idled outside the house, its engine humming low and steady. The car looked too polished, too alien, like a fragment of another world dropped by mistake onto their quiet street. Malik stopped in the shadows, one hand holding the woman back behind him. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, sharp suit, carrying himself as if not just the car but the entire street belonged to him. His eyes found her instantly. That wasn't the glance of a passerby. It was the stare of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. "Found you," he said. The voice was calm, almost lazy, but that calm carried more menace than a scream. The woman clutched the pendant so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Malik stepped forward. "She stays here." The man tilted his head, studying him like a strange inconvenience. A faint smirk tugged at his mouth. "You think you have the right to decide?" he said. "She's a debt, and debts don't hide. They get collected." "If you want your debt, take it to court," Malik answered, voice steady. "But you don't walk into my house unless you go through me first." Silence pressed down, heavy and viscous. Only the sedan's idle throb filled the night. The man stepped closer, the headlights catching his hand. A heavy ring gleamed on his finger, scarred and scratched. In the light it looked stained, as if old blood clung to the grooves. Slowly, deliberately, he dragged it across his palm, like testing the edge of a blade. "Tonight I leave," he said, almost in a whisper. "But soon I'll return, and then I won't be talking." His gaze shifted to the woman. "You know I always find you." He turned, slid back into the car, and the sedan rolled away, smooth and patient, disappearing around the corner. Only the smell of gasoline lingered in the air, proof that they weren't alone anymore. The woman sank onto the steps, breath uneven, hands trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If he said he'll come back, it means there'll be blood." Malik closed the door and checked the lock 3 times. His eyes held no fear, only cold clarity. He knew. The hunt had begun. And next time, it would not be words that decided the outcome. The night returned to silence, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of waiting. Thick, like the air before a storm. Jada slept soundly, her steady breathing the only thing holding the house together. The woman sat by the window, clutching the pendant as if it could protect her. Malik didn't sleep. He watched the door, certain the black sedan would return. The only question was when, and what he would be ready to do when it did. And now the question is for you. Life always brings moments when the past comes back too suddenly, forcing a choice. If you were in Malik's place, would you hide, surrender, or fight to the end? Share your thoughts in the comments. Support this story with a like if you believe the real battle is only beginning. And subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.